All right. So today's topic, Speak from the Heart, is one of Kansas leadership competencies with intervene skillfully. So first off, just kind of reminding us all the leadership definition from Kansas Leadership Center, mobilizing people to make progress on those deep, daunting, adaptive challenges. So it takes people to get involved. We need people to make progress, and we need to mobilize people. So it's just important to see that leadership involves others. It involves progress, which there's a process that leads themselves to moving forward to address issues that are complicated and difficult. And those are the ones we're going to be talking about. All right, so we've talked a lot, and you guys probably are well versed in this as I am, that technical work versus adaptive work. So when you think of technical work, what do you think about? Anybody?
Sort of like easy, or not easy, but like problems with like very like straightforward solutions, sort of.
Yeah, there's an answer, there's a solution, and there's usually an expert that is versed or trained that knows what they're doing, you know, whether it's like fixing the plumbing or fixing my car or the computer or something to that nature, that you can go to that person in authority and tell them your problem, and they're going to know how to fix it. How does that differ from adaptive work or adaptive challenges?
That is going to take a lot more learning and exploration and a lot more time to make progress, and it's not clear.
Yeah, and I like how you said make progress, not fix, because there, you know, if we could fix the opioid problem in the world, that would be wonderful. But realistically, we're making progress, hopefully, in what we're doing to make progress towards a better community with less overdoses and such as that. But it still takes a lot of people to make that progress. We can't go to Krista and say, Krista, would you please fix the opioid problem so we don't have any more overdoses? Could you just do that for us? She needs to get a lot of people involved, right? And when they get involved, they have to get involved because they want to get involved, right? And so it has to do with people's values, their loyalties, their losses, things from the heart. So I love one of the things that KLC said is emotion with purpose. So, you know, we talk about, you know, don't be so emotional sometimes, but we do need emotion and passion to drive us, but drive us with a purpose in mind. So just keeping in mind that we're talking about those adaptive challenges here. So we need to remain curious and make progress and motivate and involve others to do this work. So today's chat, we're going to explore what it means to speak from the heart and recognize situations that call for us to speak from the heart, and become acquainted with some tips on how to begin to speak from the heart. So Robert Greenleaf, which I had not heard of until learning about KLC, he ushered in a new way to think of leaders and thinking of leaders as servants, which historically was probably unheard of and still is actually in some incidences, which is, you know, kind of surprising, but some big companies still have that old way of leadership with authority and authority down. But Robert Greenleaf was the founder of a modern servant leadership movement, and he coined the term servant leadership and helped millions of people to think differently about their role as a manager or authority figure. Those moved by his ideas and his work would no longer believe that employees' job is to serve them as the employer, but the other way around, that the person in authority, the employee, was a servant to those under them. The servant leader approach uplifted the employees and managers alike, and that uplifted spirit led to better performance. which resulted in more success for the company that Greenleaf worked for, which was the longtime AT&T executive. He was really onto something, and this whole movement was born out of his ideas and the outcomes of those ideas. So in that, also just remembering that this is where the KLC concepts came from, especially this speak from the heart grows out of that servant leadership idea. Leadership's not about you, it's about them. So keeping that in mind also as we go through and talk about this. This is one of KLC's cartoons. What do you see happening in the cartoon here? Anybody have some thoughts?
It looks like the guy on the bottom is like singing or like performing for the people above him.
Yeah, a little out of my comfort zone there. How are the people responding up above?
They seem to be listening or enjoying. They don't look like angry or disgusted or anything negative.
Yeah, for the most part, there's a couple there that to me kind of look like, oh, what is he doing? Some have real smiles like, oh, yay, give me more. What else might be going on? Anything else? What do you think they might be thinking? Yeah, I kind of wonder who these people are, you know, and why he is engaging them in this manner. But there's probably a reason for it, I guess, right? He's not knocking on their door and talking to them. He's going to the balcony and singing to them. So who do you think those people might be up above there?
Could be a family,
Yeah, could be a family.
workplace.
Any other ideas?
A general audience that came to his show.
Yeah, maybe he is the performer of a show. I was kind of thinking that too, as if he was in a performance that maybe either they might be audience of his performance, or if he was a part of a theater group or something and he is part of their theater group, that's how he's reaching them. Yeah, I don't know. All right, so we want to speak from our hearts though to the hearts of others. So I'm kind of guessing that maybe in order to speak to their hearts, he's engaging them where they are. And for some reason, that's the way he thought that he would get to their hearts. So it's his way of engaging them that they'll accept and they'll receive from him in a way that might connect, because that's part of speaking from the heart is how do we make connections? What likeness do we have? What loyalties or values or heartfelt passion and emotion do we share with that person that will connect us? And if you think of people in your own lives, I'm sure that there's people that you connect with and you connect with them all differently. You don't have the same likes and values and emotional connections with all of the people. You connect with them in different ways. Ariel, I think about the connection, and we haven't even met in person, but we're both from Wisconsin. So that's a connection there. Over and beyond that, I don't have that connection with Krista. And with Nancy, my son lives in Boston. He's here with me now. She's from Boston. Her parents are in Boston. That's another connection. So making some of those connections helps us to engage with those people and have that heart to heart in other areas. When we speak heart to heart, we don't want to just get things off our chest and this is the way I feel and this is the things that we need to do. We need to make sure that there's a connection there. I like the term that we talk about a lot in coalition work is nobody cares what you know until they know that you care. So that's part of something I think about too when I think of speak from the heart is how are you going to connect with your audience, no matter what it is, whether it's a coworker or coalition work or a somebody that you're providing a service for, is, what is it that you can make that connection in order for them to know that you really care, so that they will listen to the facts and the information that you have that you want to share with them. Most often we speak from our head with organized facts, which is good many times. But when working on adaptive challenges, we also need to remember to speak from our hearts, emotions, values, the things that connect people to that difficult work that we want to make challenge on. We need to connect to their heart so they can hear from our hearts. So we need to get their emotions and their hearts involved in the work. Adaptive work includes engaging with others, listening, learning in order to make progress by mobilizing others to be involved in that work. So speak from the heart is not about us, it's about them. But we need to make that connection from our hearts to their hearts. So this is part, like I said, of skillfully intervene. When we have an adaptive challenge, it's like, okay, what's my part in this mess? How can I skillfully intervene in this adaptive challenge in order to make progress? And we know that progress means motivating others to get involved. So speaking from the heart's about connecting to the hearts of others you're trying to motivate to do the difficult work. This can be very strategic and conscious way of intervening. We need to be really mindful and think things out sometimes, especially some people more than others. Some people just seem to automatically have that heartfelt passion and being able to express that to people, but remembering who you're expressing it to, because some people might just go, oh my gosh, she's always the emotional person, I don't need to hear that. So we can go overboard too. So we really need to pay attention to our audience of who we're connecting with, so that it's not about us, it's about them. What do they care about, and how can I connect what I care about to what they care about? So we have to know how to frame it in the way that's going to connect with them. Speaking with a passion, not because we're emotionally triggered, but we have a passion for the outcome. We have a passion for the result, for the change that needs to happen, and the adaptive challenge to be made progress on. That's where the passion needs to come from. And remembering it's not about you, so speak from your heart to their heart is really important to remember. So these are some questions, sometimes, especially those maybe more difficult people that you don't really know well, that you don't know how to connect with. I think especially of a lot of those partners that Krista works with that are more at the state level and, just don't have a personal connection with them. What are some questions that you could ask yourself on how do I be intentional about speaking from the heart, and what is their heart connection? What do they care about? So these are some things questions you could ask. What makes this work so important, or the challenge so important? Why would they care about it? Why is it important to them? What do the people you're speaking to care deeply about? What story would they tell if they were talking about this adaptive challenge? What would their story sound like compared to yours? What story will they tell? What emotions do they have in it that would connect them? What do you want people to acknowledge about the work? And what do you want people to do? So just some ideas. We'll all struggle to speak from the heart if we are more focused on ourselves, on our own plan, and not remembering what their interest is in the challenge. Adaptive challenges, remember, live in the hearts, not the heads of people around you. And it can be hard to speak from the heart without getting in touch with that genuine care and concern that you feel, and those that you want to engage and energize. So finding that sweet spot of what they care about and why they care about it. You'll need to understand what the people you work with or you want to engage with care about, what they value, what they believe about the situation. Then you'll need to find a way to use authentic stories and authentic emotions to help build a bridge from you to them with that ultimate purpose of making progress in mind. The people that you work with will be more likely to dedicate their time and their energy. They'll listen to you. They might read, what you're sending them if you've made that connection and that heart to heart. This often happens with coalition work. It's really important because when we're working with stakeholders and trying to bring them to the table, like we all know, or partnerships like with all of Krista's work, they need to know, the why behind it, and they didn't need to have a connection of why they're coming and what matters to them. And you would speak to a politician maybe way differently than you would a pharmacist, or speaking to an insurance agent. What's their concern in the work? Why does it matter to them that we don't have drunk driving compared to a teacher or a college professor? They're going to probably have different heartthrobs, but sometimes also you can find out that they have a personal connection. Maybe they had a situation in their own life that why it's important to them. So it can be a lot of different reasons, but we all have different reasons that connect us to the work, and trying to find that. Part of that, I think, sometimes is being vulnerable ourselves to be able to share why it's important to us. But just knowing the timing and your audience, and whether it's a quick short story or what that connection is, making sure again that it's not about us, it's about them and what resonates with them and what's going to engage with them where they are. Yeah, I'm going to go on to that one. All right, so we're going to do a little practice drill here. So I want you to think about a person whose leadership you admire, someone you've witnessed that mobilizes other people to make progress on adaptive challenge. So has an active leadership in a way that does this heart-to-heart thing really good, speaks from the heart and gets people engaged. Think about instances when you've seen that person connect heart-to-heart with an individual or with a group. Maybe that person connected heart-to-heart with you in a situation. Think about, what did that person do? Why was it impactful? How did they connect with you and connecting you to become engaged and mobilized with an adaptive challenge? So I'm just going to be quiet for a while so you can think about that.
I think when a person does that, they connect like human to human rather than human to worker.
Yeah, and I've had youth that have really gotten this when I work with them, that they'll remind me, we need to humanize this. When I work with them to do presentations or something, and I'm bringing facts about, marijuana and youth and what it does to the brain and all that stuff. And they're really good these days at reminding me, the ones I work with anyway, that we need to humanize this. I think that's what they're talking about. Good point. Anybody think of somebody that they admire or look up to that acts in this leadership way?
Yeah, I think Kelly Nutter and Sarah Harris are perfect examples of this. I feel like they're always speaking from the heart and displaying this trait, I would say.
Yeah. What is it special that they do, you think, that that works for them. I mean, I think they have a gift, but
They definitely have a gift for sure. I think it goes back to what Nancy is saying. They humanize it, and they also not only do they care about the other people, but they make sure to take the time to make sure people are understanding and they're meeting people where they're at. It's a whole lot of different things that I think they do just definitely have that skill for sure. Yeah, I think a lot of it goes back to what Nancy was saying, and a lot of different ways that this can show up.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Ariel, did you think of anybody or anything specific?
Sort of. So yesterday I gave a tobacco presentation to a 6th grade class, and the teacher in the classroom would sometimes like add to the presentation and sort of like personalize it to the kids. And like he talked about, I think they had like a student teacher last semester or something, and how the student teacher got super involved in like substance use prevention and sort of like connected it to their lives and made it like more relevant to them, and sort of like because I was just like a stranger coming into the classroom giving them all this information. So I think having the teacher share the same information, I think it meant more to the kids because it was coming from someone that they knew and they trusted. So yeah, I think it just made all of like the information more meaningful to them. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, kids are no different. They don't care about the facts and the information we know unless they have that connection and to get their emotions engaged and involved and know that we really care so that they'll listen. Yeah, great. Good examples. So how do we speak from the heart to the hearts of others? Just some ideas. So connect with what they are about. So like a politician, I mean, maybe they have a connection and you can know the history behind that, and maybe it's available on the internet to be able to find out some of that. But also sometimes they're about numbers and the funding part, or they're about votes. So they want to know how it affects a lot of other people, whatever that challenge is that you might be working on. So remember just to connect where they are, what's important to them. That's what we're doing right now with Engage Douglas County and trying to identify what are the messages around marijuana legalization and how it's going to affect youth. What are the messages that we should be putting out there? So we're doing a survey to try to find out a little bit about what's the overall cultural heart of the community as far as adults' perception on youth marijuana use, so that we can make those messages around about what they care about. We need to speak honestly about what we care about too, though, sharing our own stories. This is so important that I've seen in real time with coalition work. At one time I was providing TA to a coalition that was really having a hard time with building capacity and getting people, to come to the table and really be engaged in the work. Sometimes they would show up just because that's what they were supposed to do. It was part of their job. It was expected. So they would show up to warm a chair, but weren't really engaged in the work. And so I did an exercise with them about sharing my own heartfelt story of how I got involved with coalition work, why it mattered to me. And then I had each one of them share why they came to the table to begin with, and just why this work was important to them. And some of it was very much about numbers and reducing crime. Some of it was about working with youth and wanting to make a difference. Some of it was because they had an incident in their own family member with a situation that involved substance misuse that caused a death. And so they were passionately engaged in that way. So all very different, but it reminded them of why they were there to do the work, and was able just to share heart to heart to motivate them and move forward. So sharing a story can be really powerful. You can share why you think they are the right people for the work. So that also just really encourage them. So that's why you're here, and that's why we're going to make a difference, whether it's making a difference with the numbers and the factual information, or those heartfelt stories of keeping more people safe and less people dying in a car accident because of a drunk driver on the road or something. So just knowing your audience, and sometimes you have to ask the questions to get to know what their connection is. So invite others to speak from their heart can be really powerful. And it doesn't have to be a whole, drawn out story. It could be some simple questions, but remembering to remain curious and asking those questions can be important. But remaining in control of our emotions, not letting it totally overtake us, because people don't want to hear, they want to hear how it connects, and also being able to make sure that hope is involved in that also. Anybody have anything that they want to add to that? I was at a conference quite a few years back. It was a CADCA conference, and there was a national speaker that was talking about marijuana legalization, and it was before there was so many states that were, but it was at the time when New York was working on whether they were going to legalize or not legalize. And I remember the story of prevention folks saying that they came to a hearing about the legalization of marijuana, and I think it was adult use marijuana, which some people call recreational marijuana. And I remember that they were saying that as prevention folks, they came very professionally minded. They had their head knowledge. They had the facts, they had data, data sheets, and graphs to tell their story, which was powerful if you're into that kind of thing. And it was part of the story, but what they shared was they forgot to bring the heartfelt part of the story. So the people that were pro wanting legalization, they brought people that told their heartfelt stories of how it affected Uncle Joe and how it affected our child that now does not have seizures because if they were able to give them medical marijuana. I mean, they really brought the heartfelt stories. And I just remember it was so impactful to me, and I could see so easily how this connected, that yes, that we need to bring data and factual information, but we also need to bring the heartfelt to really engaging with people's hearts in order to motivate them and make those progress towards those difficult challenges. All right, so what are some takeaways from just our little chat this morning about that you've learned that you might want to do something different moving forward? Anybody have any takeaways they would like to share?
Maybe just like how much like one conversation or like one thing can make a difference, like taking a little bit of extra time to make that connection can make like a huge difference in your work.
Yeah, and I think of this often with presentations. It's so easy for me just to provide the facts. And I think about some presenters that I love hearing, and I remember what they say. And now that I think back on that, I think, oh, it wasn't just about facts. Somehow they told a story. They told even something funny about themselves. They made that emotional connection. So one thing that I take away in just talking about this again is reminding me not to forget those things, even in presentations or facilitating a meeting. It all seems so serious sometimes, and we put on the professional hat sometimes and think we got to have everything in order, factual and data and stuff and the graphs, but we also need to remember the heart to heart and the question or whatever it is that makes that connection. What about Nancy, Krista? Do you have any takeaways or anything that you're thinking about?
I think this one is tricky. I think it's a fine line between, I don't know, almost like being personal rather than being objective.
Yeah, and I would agree with what you're saying about the presentations, Deanne, that I'm always about like, okay, here's the point, here's the data, let's get through it, you know, those kind of things. And so I don't take the time typically to like tell stories and whatnot, which I know are very beneficial. So that's something I'm always working on to do more of that. And Nancy, I would say, I think you do this speaking from the heart very well as well. So maybe that's why it's tricky for you to think of an example, because you already do it well.
And very good at balancing, because you want to respect people's time and their own personal lives. So you don't want to touch them too close to the heart, that things that are, that, you know, that they're protecting and they don't want you to know about. So it is very tricky, and knowing how to just kind of navigate that. So does anybody have anything? Well, we kind of talked about already, you know, what makes it difficult. And if one other thing that I think about making it difficult, if it's a subject matter that I don't really have an emotional care or connection to, that makes it really hard for me to make that connection myself, because I need to tap into that passion within myself first before I can make that, you know, connection with them. It's not about me, but that can make it difficult in doing the work. Is there anything from this dimension that you think you might experiment with this week? Anybody have an adaptive challenge they're working on that you're thinking about doing some experimentation with around this?
I'm giving another presentation. I'm giving a vaping presentation to 8th graders. So it's similar to what I did yesterday, but a little bit different. So maybe instead of just like giving the presentation and just sort of like presenting the information, trying to make it a little bit more personal and giving the students like more of a reason to like be engaged and to feel like it's like really like I guess to help them find a connection to the information, as opposed to just like standing there and presenting.
Yeah, how can you humanize it? Anybody have any ideas for Ariel? Sometimes even at the beginning opening, you know, how many people have seen a vape pen? How many have somebody that you know that's ever used a vaping device? You know, how do you feel about that? You know, just getting 1 and 2 people to share, you know, might be enough to open it up, at least to in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. All right. Well, if nobody has anything else to share, then we can close for today. Anybody have anything?
Thank you, Deanne.
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Have a great day.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.